What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Josh Lacey podcast, Empathetic Warriors, where we'll talk to real-life warriors overcoming hardships and where it's gotten them in their life. Thank you for listening. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Josh Lacey podcast, Empathetic Warriors. Today, I get the honor and pleasure of having one of my former Marine Corps leaders when I was in 3MEF, Robbie Horne. Robbie, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, Josh? How you doing, man? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing amazing. Great catching up with you and getting to see you again.
Likewise, man, for sure.
So real quick, give me an update. What you've been up to? I guess I got out in 2013. You got out a little bit after that. What's life been like?
Yeah, I got out in November 1st, 2013. So this past year was 10 years, man. And
Wow, congratulations.
It's flown by.
Yeah?
Thanks. Yeah, it's flown by. So I got out. I was actually in a rough spot when I got out. I was very unhealthy. I was on a lot of pills. I was just in a rough spot, man. I was heavy, real heavy. I gained a lot of weight towards the end of my time, for depression and just taking pills and stuff.
Man, was that
anyway?
the
I got
VA
out.
starter pack, or was that kind of just stuff that you found comfort in?
I mean, it was before. Yeah, it was while I was at Fort Leonard Wood. As an MP instructor, man.
Man.
Yeah, they prescribed me like Percocet for the first time, and honestly, I didn't even take it right away. We had I was on the softball team, right? So it was all my friends that were MPs were on the softball, all our instructors, we had a softball team. Anyway, so we had like a triple header that day. And I remember we played 2 games and then we had like a break and then we had to play another game. And we played on base. And I remember my back was just hurting, man. Like that burn you get when you carry a pack for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like that, dude. I just needed to just lift it up some. Anyway, dude, I don't take like Advil and ibuprofen. I don't take that stuff, man. I never have. Never even been on pills. Don't do any of that stuff. But I had those in my medicine cabinet. Again, I didn't even know what they were. As far as what they really, really were, what that did to me. And so I remember I just took 2 of them. I don't know, why take one when you could take 2? Boom. Not know what they were, you know? And then I remember being in the outfield, just I was high, obviously, right? And I just remember standing there like, holy smokes, man. My back was furthest thing from my mind.
Wow.
And then, it just slowly went from there to pretty much full-blown addiction.
Man, that's
about a year.
That's a rough little start. But before we get diving into too much, I want to kind of go over some of your other life stories. What led you up to the Marine Corps, why you joined, and then we'll kind of dive off into little tangents going on from there.
Yeah, man. So I don't know. Growing up, me and school just never got along. I don't know. It's not that I'm dumb. I just honestly, I can read a book, I can read a page, man, and can't tell you really what I just read to you, right? It's a comprehension thing. And of course, when I was young, ADD was just I'm not saying coming out, but it was pretty quick to say, hey, you're ADD. So I was diagnosed with ADD as a kid. And so, I mean, that was just always I'm not saying a reason, but I don't know. I always knew I had a learning disability, man. I could do math and I like science, but comprehension, just I have to see it. If I could see something, I can tell you how everything works. It's weird.
Yeah.
And so going to college, it never appealed to me, man. School was always so not saying scary to me. Again, it was just intimidating, man. You see people that are naturally smart, my friends were super smart, man. You know those guys that just have it, right? And it's just like the guys that are naturally athletic. You know, that you see them do, they don't even PT ever, but they can go, run a 300 PFT. Just whatever, man. My buddy Joe Clarkin was like that. I'm sure you remember Clarkin from the schoolhouse.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, going to college kind of never was, I, my kids know they're going to college. I mean, my kids are super smart too compared to me. So they know they're going to college. And it just, again, it wasn't for me. And I remember when I was a senior in high school, my brother, he was 4 years older than me. He joined the Marine Corps. And when I was, I'm sorry, I was in eighth grade. And I remember we went to his graduation at MCRD San Diego. And I was a freaking, eighth grade, man, like a teenager. Just, I thought that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life, right?
Well,
First time I was ever on an airplane.
Yeah.
Dude, went to the depot, man. Like, it was just, let's say, and so here, I'll tell you a little crazy story, right? I met my brother's senior drill instructor. He was Staff Sergeant Estrada was his name. And like, dude, he was crazy, man, just like all those guys are. I remember him like inviting me out to like field week. Like he's like, hey, you can sleep with me. I was just like, oh my goodness, this guy's insane. So that's when I was in eighth grade. All right. Fast forward about like 5 years, 6 years. I've been in the fleet for a little bit. We never got new boots whenever I was at division. Like they'd get onesies and twosies like every other year. Like we would never get like a crop like of 10 to 15 guys at a time. So you knew everybody when they got there. You know what I mean? Like you just knew everything about them just because there were so few guys that would come in. And I remember there was this guy, Estrada, that came there. PFC Estrada is super fast, dude. He could just run so fast. Like, he run sub 18-minute 3 mile, like just cruising, bro.
Wow.
And he was like a PT stud. And I remember he said that his dad held the Marine Corps record for consecutive 300 PFTs in a day. He did like 6 of them. I'm not exaggerating. You can look it up.
What the heck,
He ran
dude?
6. Yeah, dude. So he did 20 pull-ups, 100 crunches, and ran 3 miles in under 18 minutes. He did 20 crunches or 20 pull-ups, 100 crunches, ran 3 more miles, sub 18. He did that 6 times in one day.
Wow.
And dude, I remember my brother telling me that. That's how badass his drill instructor was, right? And so fast forward 6 years.
Wait, so that's
his son.
That's a full-blown marathon in that day.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and running it at a 6 minute. No, yeah, it's a 6 minute pace.
That's crazy.
Minimum. That's maximum 6 minutes. So I had to be the maximum 6 minutes per mile, 6 times in one day. Anyway, so that was my brother's senior drill instructor, and I met him like face to face. My brother graduated, right? And so fast forward 6 years, I was the Lance Corporal, whatever, and we get a PFC Estrada come in, and his freaking dad is this guy, dude.
That's
so my buddy. We obviously became.
Just to show you how small the Marine Corps is.
Yeah, obviously we became friends, man. And I went and met his dad. His dad's name is Manny. Super cool dude. Typical like San Diego, like Hispanic dude, man. Just chill to the world, bro. Like, hey, you ready? You ready? That's what he'd say. I'd always bring you a beer. Hey, you ready? Like, it was so cool seeing him like that compared to how I remember him, right? Like, it was crazy. And I remember the first time I went back home to my parents' house on leave, because they always had all of our Marine Corps stuff hanging up in their living room. I remember to look. I was like, dude, there's no way that's him, man. It's a crazy little Marine Corps story right there. Yeah, you know how small the Marine Corps is, man, but
it's a very small world.
Nuts, dude. Yeah, that was my brother's senior drill instructor. So anyway, from then on, it was kind of like that was always a thing I could do, just because I kind of already had an insight to what boot camp would be like, and kind of what my brother was a grunt, so he was dealing with all the bullshit. I mean, he was like he did security forces, went to Bahrain, went on a couple floats. I mean, he went in 95 and got out in 99, so he missed Iraq and all that stuff. Anyway, so he got out in 99, and I graduated in 2000. So when I graduated, I moved up. I grew up in Corpus Christi, which is way down South Texas, down by Mexico almost. And after I graduated high school, he'd just gotten out. He was on Camp Pendleton, and then he moved to Austin. He's going to Austin Community College with his GI Bill, working at the Samsung like semiconductor, making like computer chips or whatever. He was going to college, but he wanted to get back in the Marine Corps because, he just missed it or whatever. So I remember I'd only been up there a couple of months, man. I had a part-time job at the Gap at the mall here at Lakeline Mall, uh, just to get by, man. My brother was paying my rent and all that stuff, but my goal was to move up there and go to Austin Community College, get away from home, blah, blah, blah. So he started the process of trying to get back in. And so one day I was with him whenever he had to drop some he had to go get all these hearing tests done because part of he was collecting disability for his hearing. He got like 10% for his hearing.
Okay.
So in order to get back in, he had to do like more medical stuff. Anyway, so he was dropping off one of these tests to the gunny there, Gunny Garcia, man. And I was waiting outside. I remember it was cold too. And my brother like turned his Jeep off and like I'm sitting outside in the cold. I didn't know how long he was going to be in there. So I ended up going in there, man. Staff Sergeant McKinney was just sitting there. And a couple weeks later, man, I went to boot camp like Christmas Day of 2000.
So you had a quick turnaround from
And so
signing up and shipping off.
Yeah, like weeks, man, matter of weeks. I mean, yeah. And he's the reason. He told me to do something that I could do when I got out of the Marine Corps. Like I said, he was an infantry guy. So, I always liked law enforcement. So that's what kind of led me to be an MP was that, man. I kind of had an ambition to be a cop. I always, like law enforcement and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's why I joined the Marine Corps. Like I said, Christmas Day of 2000.
So when you were born again, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, man. And then again, it was during.
Oh, I was saying. So backing up just a little bit, you said college was never a thing for you. So just from a kid, was there any dreams or aspirations going into, the military, or was it you kind of saw your brother paving the path, in that direction, and you figured you'd follow in his footsteps, or was there like a pivotal moment where your parents were like, hey, if stuff might not work out for you, you need to seek an alternative path?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the refinery industry is real big where I'm from, down in Corpus. There's the port down there, so there's a lot of oil refineries and gas refineries. They make jet fuel and just crude oil refineries. That's what my dad did. My dad was an electrician at a refinery. So going there straight out of high school is very common, and guys work there their whole lives, right? You work your way up just like the military. You start off as like an apprentice or something that you're going to learn with some dude that's a master electrician or master whatever he is, and you're his journeyman, or you know what I mean? You start out that way. And again, agriculture is big there. There's farming. I worked at a tractor like supply store, if you will, but I mean we delivered tractors. It was a Case, not John Deere, but Case tractors. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff down there as far as like that. The oil field when the oil field's kind of sparked back up down there now, but before everybody works at the refineries or construction down there. So I figured that's just what I would do. Maybe go to a trade school at best, and then from there, start working.
So
again,
you
I was just so deterred by my
environment of like blue collar, not afraid to work. So like kind of going in the Marine Corps, nothing was too daunting. You knew there was going to be hard work to be done, but that was something you hadn't shied away from, in your family atmosphere growing up.
Yeah. And again, my brother told me all about it, man. You just got to do your time, bust your ass for a little bit, and it kind of pays off. So, I mean, again, going to boot camp, dude, I had fun in boot camp, man. I thought it was hilarious. I already knew it was going to happen. The gas chamber, honestly, was my biggest like fear, just because he's like, dude, it sucks, man. Just take short, choppy breaths, but like, yeah,
I wish I could have shared that experience.
So honestly, that was you had a bad experience in a gas chamber?
No, having boot camp be fun. I mean, the whole thing was, that typical Missouri boot camp story. I think it would have been a huge outlook change on, life if it had been a little bit more enjoyable.
Well, I mean, I went in there with the mentality, and that's what he told me. He's like, dude, these guys' job is to be an asshole to you. So like, no matter what you do, they're never going to say good job. Like,
Yeah.
it's already, but I'm a competitive person. Like, I want that, that's how my brain works. I need that verbal feedback, right? Like, that's just how my brain works. But I already knew going in there, these guys are just trying to tear you down. And again, my brother kind of treated me like that anyway growing up. I'm not saying I had like a rough childhood upbringing, but I mean, he used to kick my ass all the time and treat me like that. So, um, did you ever see that movie Weird Science, an '80s movie
Yes.
where they had their brother Chet?
Yep.
It's Bill Paxton. Yeah, that's how my brother was to me growing up. Like, he used to
Okay.
always mimic all the things Chet says. And anyway, so
So you speak a
yeah,
lot about your brother
that's
just,
good.
in the first couple minutes. Is he kind of what drove you kind of through life, through your childhood? Were you guys pretty close growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. We were very close. I mean, again, we were 4 years apart, so we were always kind of like a phase away. You know what I mean? He was always a
Yeah.
level up on me,
Okay.
athletically, physically. Just he's just always until we got into being adults, we were the same size. And then, not saying I could kick his ass, but yeah, he was always my hero, man. He always taught me everything about. I love baseball. Baseball's my sport. I mean, that's just me and him. That's what we did. Baseball was it. He didn't play football. I played football in middle school and high school. He didn't play at all. He didn't like to run. So yeah, he was always loved baseball. And so again, I think that's why I love baseball so much. That's just the thing that we used to always share. Um, but yeah, he was my hero, man.
That's awesome. Um, so I guess is there something prior to boot camp that kind of molded you or pushed you to that? I know you said, studying and scholastics was not your really strongest point, but was there any other thing that kind of that drove you in life?
I mean, again, sports was that thing. Sports taught me my Coach Chapman. You know, teaching you all the hard stuff and teaching you how to be a man.
Yeah.
You're accountable for your actions. So just having that and just knowing that hard work pays off. That it's nothing's going to be given to you. You have to earn it. Like, you just have to earn it and maintain it. Like, that's the glory about it. There's nothing. There's no bells that are going to go off. There's no streamers that are going to just shoot out of the sky. Like, maintaining what you're putting your hard work in. Like, that's the prize. I feel like.
Okay, man, that's a valuable lesson that I feel like nowadays is not taught as much. It's either I get the outcome, the results real quick, or I'm done and over what I want to do because it's not worth it to me. But growing up, I can relate to you you work hard for the stuff that you want, and if you don't succeed the first time, you try again until you get successful at it. So, I mean, that's a high quality trait that you got to grow up with and have implemented in your life.
Yeah, I mean, there was times obviously I was immature about stuff like that, and same thing. We've all made mistakes in our past, and it's just navigating life. So yeah, I mean, there's times, like I said, after I got out of the Marine Corps, man, I was ready to give up on life. Period. I was well over 300 pounds,
Man.
just
So how
big,
much do
man.
you weigh right now?
Just
Because you
very,
mentioned that
very
earlier.
unhealthy.
How much do you weigh currently?
I probably, I probably weigh like 215.
Wow. Congratulations, brother. That's a feat in itself. You're crushing life.
Yeah, I lost 100 pounds, man. And yeah, like 6 years ago, I was over 300 pounds. I remember
Wow.
being like 315, 320-ish. I remember the only time I would weigh myself was when I'd go visit my parents because they had a scale in the bathroom. I never had a scale. I didn't want to know. But yeah,
Okay.
it would climb up there, man. And
So
yeah, I was on a lot of pills, and that's what I go ahead.
no, I was gonna say. So now we kind of touched on the earlier parts of your life. Then your brother went away to the Marine Corps, got out. You joined. was he ever able to get back in when I guess you shipped off to boot camp? He was still in that process.
Yeah, no, he never got to get back in. They denied his little waiver. Um, so yeah, again, he was working at Samsung, and then I remember he moved from Austin back down to Corpus. He was trying to get a job on base down there. It just took him a while to do that. It's just the hiring process and all that kind of stuff.
Government work is always slow.
You know, yeah, man. So, they just kind of would have waves of when they would hire people, and he just did 4 years, so he had a little bit of a preference. But guys that are retired and been to Vietnam, those guys had a higher priority because various awards and just that stuff. So it's a long, tedious process, man. So he bartended uh, while he did that, while he waited for that, and then yeah, he got hired on there. He worked for they call it the CCAD. It's a Corpus Christi Army Depot. They work on like the Black Hawk helicopters. He worked on the navigational equipment on Black Hawk helicopters.
So he was pretty
Yeah, solder parts and fix.
And smart.
Yeah, yeah. They would get these pieces, just like how obviously how it was with us, man. When we go PM our Humvees or whatever, and something's broke, they send it to people to fix things. And I mean that's supposed to happen that way, but we don't know how that goes.
With a little duct tape, a little 550 cord, and it's all good.
Yeah, it'll buff out. But yeah, so he worked on the navigational electronics on Blackhawks, fixing little pieces and stuff like that. Um, then so he did that for a while, man. And I remember his elbow was bothering him. Like he had to quit surfing, and I don't know, he hurt his elbow. Yeah, he ended up. I'm pretty sure he was hooked on pills, kind of like how I was.
Man.
But he didn't make it out of the other end, man. He been 11 years. He killed himself.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, while I was active duty. Yeah, man. It's been 11 years. I was on a MEU out in the middle of the Philippines, man, on a boat, and we just gotten back. That night we had Liberty out in the Philippines or whatever. So it's pretty sauced. You had to be back at midnight or whatever. So we got back in plenty of time. And Chaplain Craig, man. Chaplain Craig, he was a Marine. He was a prior Marine and then became a chaplain. So he could relate like no other, man,
Yeah.
God bless that man. That was I could tell whatever I had to hear was going to be not good, man. Just by his demeanor, the chaplain doesn't come wake you up at 2 a.m. to just BS. So yeah, man, he shot himself. He had a daughter at the time that was 3 months old. She's obviously now 11.
Man.
So that was I couldn't believe it, man. We used to joke about all the suicide training we had to attend. Like I remember even joking with one of my friends saying, if I ever kill myself, I'm going to leave a note that says, if I'd attended more suicide training, I wouldn't have killed myself. Like as a joke, because
that dark humor. I mean, that's how we got through life.
Yeah. Yeah. At that time, I didn't know anybody that had killed themselves. And now today, I have more friends that have killed themselves and died on motorcycles than have died in combat. It's I always tell people that I've lost more friends at home than I did overseas. And again, yeah, man, it's out there, and I really feel like these pills have a lot of. I mean, they may work for some people, but I don't know. They didn't work for me. They did the complete opposite to me. It made me not want to do anything with my life.
So, when you got hooked on pills, when you had your addiction, was this after your brother or prior to your brother?
Prior to my brother.
Okay, man, I bet that kind of a I hate to use this word, but assisted you down that darker path, and didn't help you want to get off of anything because it helps numb the pain.
Yeah, man. At that time, I was getting anything I wanted. I was in Okinawa, when my brother died. That's where I was stationed at. So the mental health guy's there. And again, I was manipulating people too. So I don't want to just blame it solely on the doctors, right? That's the easy thing to do, right? Is
Yeah.
just to blame other people for your actions. Well, I want to say, for the record, that's not the case. I, again, was manipulating people to get what I wanted just because I was that far into addiction versus, uh, using things how I was supposed to be using them. Um, but I mean, I was on some crazy stuff. Like in Fort Leonard Wood, they had me on like lithium carbonate. They diagnosed me with some anger compulsive disorder or something like that. Um, and yeah, so I was on a list of medicines, but lithium carbonate, um, I had to go get my blood tested every week to make sure I wasn't getting toxic. So I don't know, your body freaks out when you start taking lithium.
Yeah.
Uh, they had me on Seroquel, which is like it's an antipsychotic medicine. Like people who are bipolar, they take like hundreds of milligrams of this stuff, and it slows their brain down. I mean, I was only on like 50 milligrams. Let's say only. Like it's a little purple pill. And I'm telling you, Josh, when you take that, 20 minutes later, I don't care what you're doing, you're going to sleep. Like
Wow.
it shuts your brain off pretty much. I mean, so it was good for nightmares, which I was still waking up in crazy sweats and all that. My mattress would be sopping wet every morning from just being so active in my sleep. And that just led to like having to take a blood pressure medicine. And then they had me on another sleep aid. And then I had to take some Adderall to function during the day, right? Because all that stuff makes you so damn groggy the next day.
So essentially
So you're
they
just,
they give you an upper to get through the day, and then all of a sudden they give you a downer so you can come down at night.
yeah. And then, well, during the day, I have the upper on top of a bunch of Percocet and Vicodin and, any kind of painkiller I could get my hands on um, with that. And then anxiety medicine on top of that, too. I was Klonopin, Xanax. I was prescribed a half a milligram or I would take a football per day. So that's up to a milligram of Xanax a day. I would get those
Wow.
prescribed. They would only do 30-day prescriptions for those because it's a controlled substance. But when I would go like on float and stuff like that, when I would deploy, they would give me bottles of it.
That's it's
And it
crazy,
just,
how regulated and being a scheduled drug those are. But when you get into kind of the VA world or the government world, it seems like in my personal experience, they will just throw scheduled drugs at you almost uncontrollably. And if you're saying something's wrong or I'm feeling a side effect, they're like, "Oh, here's another drug to help combat what you're feeling." Is that kind of what you experienced?
yeah. And even after I've gotten off pills, man. So obviously I still get seen by the VA mental health through there. I'm diagnosed with the second highest level of PTSD one can be diagnosed with. I'm not the top tier because I haven't killed myself or tried to kill myself. I mean, I've had suicidal ideations and all that kind of stuff, but that puts me in that tier. And, you know, so I still have to see mental health and all that stuff. And so recently, man, so here's here's a fact that I heard, Josh, that 60% of VA doctors did not receive their doctorate degree or the degree that they're practicing in for the VA in the United States of America. That's
Really?
60%. 60%. And I heard that from a very reputable VA guy that comes, obviously I work with veterans and we'll get into that, but there's this thing that I go to where all these veterans meet up on Tuesdays and Thursdays and have coffee and donuts or whatever. And a lot of times these VA representatives come in there to, tell them about new benefits and new things that are going on. So it's a productive thing, right? This guy's a retired Army Sergeant Major. I mean, he doesn't have any reason to freaking lie to us, right?
Yeah.
And so he comes in as like a motivational thing. You know, he's tired of seeing these old guys not coming in there, you know? And so that's what he told us. And that's one of the biggest deterrents of veterans seeking help is because they already know that. So why I say that is, you know, the last two mental health doctors that I've had to see or fall into that category, and they both tried to prescribe me medicine even after I told them I don't. I'm I'm anti any kind of medicine. I told them buy me a gym membership. If y'all want to piss away money on me, get me the full deluxe family package at Gold's Gym. Like that's the best medicine you can give somebody
Yeah.
versus prescribing me all this crap. And the guy's like, okay, well I'm gonna prescribe you blah blah blah. And I want to record it one time. I just don't know if it's illegal to do that. Like I just so people can see, man, how quick they throw medicine. And I do believe that they get some kind of something, man. They get some kind of kickback, or they're getting. There's no way they're all just throwing medicine at us like that. It's
I not
I mean,
to
they don't want us to be
interject
healthy.
or steal your thunder. I could relate to that. I get seen by the VA. That when I first got out, I lost all hope because they wanted to give me the VA starter pack. The typical pill packs that, hey, here you go. This will help with your nightmares. This will help with this, your anxiety, this, that, and the other. And I said no. I'll never forget. I took the sleeping pills that they prescribed me, and I forget what they were at the top of my head. And I was a pretty heavy drinker. Certified alcoholic through and through. And I woke up the next morning with what felt like the worst hangover I had ever had. And I didn't drink the night before. And I realized at that second, when I woke up, I barely could function. That this is all the horror stories that I've heard of when guys go to the VA, get those pills, and all of a sudden commit suicide out of nowhere because they dive down that deep hole and they can't get enough medication help, and I pour them out. So I mean I'm blessed to be able to get help through the VA, but at the same time, it's scary everything that they will throw at you.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, yeah, and I think we need to realize too, the different types of doctors that are out there. It scares me that when you tell your provider, the doctor that I'm supposed to see that's in charge of my overall health, that I would like to get back into the mental health program or whatever, and they refer you to a pill prescribing doctor first, right? I think a psychologist can prescribe you medicine, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong. And a psychiatrist is more of therapy talking. They don't prescribe medicine,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So I feel like their first line of defense is they start crazy. It's just like bold adjustments, man. Like and I feel like if they would start with a local therapy, a person you see in person, not this over camera stuff, because that's just going through the motions, in my opinion, as a patient, you know, um, and then getting them in some kind of physical activity. And they don't promote that. They don't promote anything about eating good, about how much better you're going to feel just from eating good, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a hidden secret these days. Dude, I used to think something was really, really wrong with my knees and my elbows because they would ache at night. I thought I already knew we were getting the burn barrel poison stuff before they even came out with it, right? Like this was our Agent Orange. Dude, I remember my knees and my elbows would throb at night. Like I couldn't sleep. I've tried everything and nothing works. It's because I was eating carbohydrates, Josh. That's it. It's because it was my diet. It wasn't my mind. It wasn't some neurological thing I had going on. Like it was my diet. And no doctor ever told me, well, what's your diet like? Well, you should
Yep.
change. I'm not saying I've always been in shape, but in the Marine Corps, they always asked, what's your PFT? I run a first class PFT. And so like, they didn't care about your health after you told them that, right? Because they're
No.
like, you have to be healthy, I guess, to run a first class PFT. You can smoke all the cigarettes you want, drink all the monster drinks, but hey, if you have first class PFT, you're good to go.
Dude, I remember in Okie, we'd wake
So
up drunk from the night before, go run a PFT, and I'd still get a first class PFT. I mean, that didn't mean I was healthy. What it meant was I had conditioned my body for those exercises, and I could pass the
yeah,
first class. But by no means, and it sucks to say it, but by no means was I healthy in the Marine Corps.
yeah. I mean, chow hall food is so bad for you. I mean, I get it. They're feeding mass quantities, but again, if they're feeding you like that, I was always on the cusp of the BCP thing, and that was a big thing in my career that I had to fight. My entire career, man, I was fat, according to the Marine Corps. And so I always fought that, man. And I still have like, it still affects me today, thinking that I'm fat, which I know I'm not fat, but it's still, it still has a lasting effect on my mental status, man, of how hard they pressed us to be under how to look a certain way, man. Yeah.
So all of that, man, that's really intense because when you start into that path in the Marine Corps, you think that, okay, hey, I'm in this, in my opinion, the most elite branch of service that we can be in, and they're not pushing this health,
Yeah.
but they'll give you every medication known to mankind just to kind of get you by and help you start coping better. Was there a time, like a deployment or anything, that kind of led or initiated that path down that dark road where you felt like, you know, being yourself wasn't enough? You needed to go seek that extra help.
To be honest with you, man, it it wasn't any of that. Like I always felt like my weight held me back, right? Even I mean, both deployments I did, I mean, obviously we had some really, really bad days. I've, been blown up, shot at, all that stuff. But the the thing that's held me back the most, dude, was being labeled as fat and dealing with that stress alone. I know destroyed it. And again, I remember two times being. I remember when I got promoted to sergeant, they almost held my promotion because the first sergeant, he was such a jerk, man. When I was at PMO, actually, I was at the general's building on Camp Pendleton. I was a general's driver with my buddy Estrada that we talked about earlier. We both PCS from division to base. And so we're both at PMO. I mean, he was the actual general's driver. I just worked in the building for the public affairs office, but they called us the general's driver. Um, so yeah, the first sergeant there, he was an infantry guy. He was going to hold my promotion warrant uh, because I taped over and I was overweight. Which, I mean, I get it, but at that time I was being seen by like mental health. I had to get a letter from my doctor saying that the medicine that I take is causing me to gain weight and all that stuff. So they promoted me to sergeant. And then
So,
again,
so,
I mean,
oh, go ahead.
4 years later, go ahead. 4 years later, I get promoted to staff sergeant, or 5 years, maybe 6 years. No, that's 5 years. Same thing, man. I mean, yeah, when I was at the schoolhouse, I get it, man. People thought I was fat, but I mean, I could run in PT with, I'm not saying the best of them, but I didn't fall out of runs. I was leading runs. I was running, 100 kids every 3 days. So like I was in shape. I just didn't look like I was in shape.
Yeah. So let's jump back. You said you've been deployed twice. Can you share with us the experiences that you had on those?
Yeah, I went to Iraq twice, man. We did the invasion in '03. So when 9/11 kicked off, we actually thought we were going to Afghanistan. Is where I remember we were about to go home on Christmas leave, and they were like, at first they were like, nobody's going home. You're going to Afghanistan. And then they had a group of guys from MP Company that actually like did a workup, and they're actually on a bird, man. They didn't even get to go on Christmas leave, and then they turned around that day. The rest of us, they told us we weren't going to Afghanistan, and then so yeah, we went. We left February of '03. We flew into Kuwait, and we were there for until March 19th, man. We went across. We saw the most robust airstrike in U.S. history, which is pretty cool. Safwan Hill. We stood there and watched this hill just get blown to crap. That was supposedly where the Iraqi special forces kind of, it was like a really big, like out of place mound, like a huge big rock, very out of place. It's called Safwan Hill. So you can look through on Safwan Hill and you can actually see into Kuwait from there. So they said it was all these tunnels and stuff like that. So Safwan, when we drove across, was the first town that we went through. And so the night before, we watched some just pretty cool airstrike, man. We watched that happen.
That's awesome.
We were in mop suits for like we were in mop suits for like the first 3 months. For y'all out there that know what a mop suit is, it's like a charcoal lined chemical resistant like overalls and like this jacket you put on. And it's super, super thick, to absorb any kind of chemicals that fall on you. It's got this hood, and then you have your gas mask on you, and you've got these moon boots that you wear that are, you have on tennis shoes, and you put these big rubber boots over your tennis shoes. So we were in that the first 3 months because weapons of mass destruction were an imminent threat. And yeah,
Wow.
we got briefed before, the night.
So from wake up to sleep, I mean, there was really no comfort time for you during that time.
No, use your gas mask carrier as your pillow. I mean, but see, when we were in Kuwait, it was normal daily operations. You went to bed, at 10 p.m., we'd turn the lights off. We were in these big freaking tents, tent city at Camp Matilda. And then once we crossed, it was a whole different ball game, man. I was a lance corporal in a Humvee with 2 sergeants. So you can imagine who stood the most watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were responsible for your own security. I mean, you would go 3 or 4 days without seeing your guys, and then boom, everybody marries up together. The invasion was crazy, man. It was just like a field op. It really was like in 29 Palms, like just this big field op. It was just doing traffic control points, and then we would get like 5,000 Iraqi soldiers that would come up to us, and we'd have to process all these EPWs. So we'd set up a freaking EPW camp for 3 or 4 days right there, process every single one of them, and then send them down south. So that was just kind of our way. I mean, we very sporadic.
What was that like while you were processing the EPWs, which enemy prisoners of war? When you got to process that, was that like a reality check to what you were dealing with, or had you already kind of dealt with some of those things, prior, and it was the norm by then?
At first, it was like, holy shit, because we're way outnumbered, right? And it's customary for their officers to carry a gun when they surrender. So you kind of had to get used to that. An officer walking up to you with a freaking AK or a pistol and letting them keep it, right? Because at first, you're putting guns in faces and like waiting for suicide bombs and stuff to go off. You didn't know if it was a hoax or not. It's just, you didn't know what you were dealing with. But those guys were so scared. Every single one of them were shaking, trembling, when you're searching them. They think you're going to kill them. But again, we had trained for all that. That's kind of what obviously as an MP, that's what our mission is out there. So we already knew the routine, man. We already kind of knew all the stations and just kind of how all that stuff worked, kind of what we're looking for, any kind of intel. They didn't have anything on them. They would have very minimal cash, their Quran. I mean, they're still in their uniform stuff, but they didn't have weapons. They didn't have any of that stuff. So yeah, at first it was kind of like, holy smokes. But then it was like, good, let's get these guys out of here. Let's get everybody south. So that way, the push to Baghdad was, at that time there was no bases. There was no FOBs. It was just, everything was in the open.
It was I mean, it was back in the settlers moving across the U.S. It sounds like you just wagon wheel up, and that's what you felt safety at.
Yeah, I remember when we got to walk in the Babylon ruins, which is pretty
wow,
which is pretty cool. So Saddam's got a palace in Babylon that overlooks the ruins, and so next to the ruins there was this restaurant. It used to be a restaurant, but we took it over. and that's where our company stayed. We had about a 40 to 50 man company that we operated. We had 4 guys that were combat motorcycle operators, so they would go do route recon all the time on their little motorcycles. So we were always just running missions out of there. Um, and that was the first building like we stayed at for a while. A lot of the times, if we were doing like a traffic control point at a bridge or something like that, we'd be there for like a week or two. You would find some kind of abandoned hut, and that's just what we'd sleep in and cook food in and whatever. Yeah, we were kind of just living like savages, man. I mean, just living off the land, stealing all their cigarettes. And
So
then yeah, I
that
got
was your first deployment.
um,
How long after your first deployment was your second deployment?
I got back in July, and then we went back again in February. And so I came home early. I got wounded the first tour, so I came home
How did you
two
get
months
wounded?
earlier, 3 months earlier. Yeah, we got hit by some rockets. I know that's, yeah, we got hit by some rocket propelled grenades, man. We got ambushed. Um, it's in this town of Rashid. It's kind of southwest of Baghdad. It's right we were on the Tigris River. Uh, we were doing a little kind of a route recon, but we were also doing like a refueling mission. We had two gun trucks. I was a lead truck. We had a Mark 19 on the top, and again, this is all jungle environment. Uh, the closer you are to water, it turns into a jungle versus desert. So it was very, very vegetation everywhere. Um, it was 2 Humvees, and in between us, we had a refuel truck, a military refuel truck. 2 reservists were in that, and so we go to this big facility that ran that town's electricity, and they didn't have the diesel to, the constant flow of diesel to do that. So they brought this huge refuel truck. We had to stand security behind that or at it to make sure nothing happened to it. So they filled this freaking facility up. And during that time, they came and they invited us to come eat some food. While they staged their ambush, they distracted us, bastards. I mean, yeah. So anyway, we get done doing all that, and we're on an unimproved road, man. It's a levee road, so its main purpose is a levee. In case that river floods, it doesn't go into these small little hut towns, right? So it's a pretty aggressive angle on both sides. Like you couldn't just drive down it. Like you would never get back up it, especially in the little vans. So like trying to turn a Humvee around on that road is just not an option. You have to drive all the way down to a place to turn around, a driveway or something, and then head back the other way. Plus we got this big LVS, this big military refuel truck. So that thing's not turning around nowhere, right?
No.
So we head out there. We had a translator with us, and then on the way back, he wanted to ride he made a big deal about riding in the front of the vehicle where my truck was. It was just very odd to me because I knew we knew where we were going.
It was out of the norm.
So we take off.
Was that a big red flag thrown up to the guys, or had he made those kind of requests before?
Yeah. No, this guy's behavior, it was a big red flag. But again, at that time, nothing had really happened like that to us. And we were kind of running that town. It was a DEA agent, Major Devine was his name. He was a reservist, and he was our boss, dude. He rolled around with just like a leather holster running through his belt, dude, like in a flak jacket and a helmet. Like he's just cowboy, man. He was like, "Y'all are my weapon. I don't need any weapons." I'm like, okay. So he was a pilot for the DEA. So he's just was screwed up already in the head. You know what I mean? One of those kind of crazy dudes.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, we're cruising on the lead vehicle. I don't even have my Kevlar on. Just lit up a Marlboro Red cigarette. And Phillips was driving, and Blunt, we called him Doobie. He was riding shotgun or up in the turret. Yeah, we were cruising, and they gave us a bunch of flashbangs, so I had flashbangs up in my visor. Sometimes when we'd stop, the crowd would gather around us. We'd throw one of those things out there to get people away from us, because that's kind of when suicide bombs and suicide vests kind of started to come out, right?
Okay.
We'd heard about them, but never seen them yet. Um, so yeah, I remember we were cruising, man, and again we had the river on our left side. We were heading from west to east, and dude, we get freaking drilled, man. They the left side took the brunt of the hit. When the driver was driving, it hit like right there in the side view mirror area. Boom! He lost his right eye. It exploded his eye. I mean, his face was done, man. His left arm was just open. I remember I could see everything in his arm. Uh,
Were you guys driving
so
up
they hit
armored
us right
Humvee
before like a
or soft armored at that time?
no, no. Yeah, it's soft armored, man. Just a regular. And you know what was crazy? We normally had our freaking doors off because it was so damn hot. We didn't have AC in those things. So just for us to even have our doors on was a freaking miracle. You know, we would cargo strap them to either the hood or to the rear hatch, and it was just 130 degrees every day, man. And we didn't have ice. We didn't have anything that the first tour. None of that stuff. You couldn't even drink water, man. We would get our water bottles and put them in a sock, and you get them wet and you hang them out the window. Like it was seriously like drinking scalding coffee during the day. You couldn't drink water during the day. You had to wait till the nighttime to drink water. It's just so freaking hot. And you're in fucking mop suits too, man. Like I was like 150 pounds and I came back. Like everybody was so skinny from just being in mop suits and it's so freaking hot. And you know, obviously sweating your ass off every day. Um, so yeah, we get drilled, man. Um, so we're the lead vehicle. We got a Mark 19 up top. We've got a refuel truck that has two reservists in it. They just have their M16s. And then the third vehicle is there's five guys in that truck, and they've got a 240. They're facing the rear, right? So they hit us from both sides. Again, we're elevated, right? So it's a perfect ambush spot. They can shoot at us from both sides of the road, and not have to worry about hitting each other. So I remember hearing the explosions. I don't know how many I heard. Dude, my ears are still ringing from that day. I remember looking up to see if my flashbangs malfunctioned or what. Like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
Right? And I remember I couldn't even see him. There was so much smoke inside of that truck. And so we immediately went down the ravine because, again, Phillips is driving. His right eye is done, and his left eye just has crap all in it. So we go down this ravine, and we hit a tree going, 30 to 40 miles an hour, however fast we were going. And again, we're going way downhill. So my turret gunner, he gets ejected from the turret. And we hear gunfire. I believe the 240 opened up. My buddy PJ, I'm actually at his office right now. We still keep in contact.
That's awesome.
He was behind me. Yeah, he was in the truck behind me. So they didn't see us go off. They didn't see us go off because they had this huge refuel truck in front of them. So they didn't see us. They didn't see us disappear.
Wow.
And the refuel truck didn't see us go off the ditch either because they just saw the smoke. Right? They saw the rockets impact us. They slammed on their brakes and then they puff of smoke and they went through the smoke and they thought we just pulled way ahead of them. They didn't see us go down the ditch, right? And so obviously the rear truck, they're shooting off to the left side. So that would be the north side of the road. We fall off on the south side of the road. So unless he was looking at us, he wouldn't have been able to see us. So they're engaging from both sides now, from the north side of the road and the south side of the road. My driver's pretty much incapacitated. My turret gunner, we get him his saw. We start obviously laying down the base of fire, man. We had dudes coming at us screaming, man. So from the north side, they were all running towards this little white truck, like a Zuzu, single cab, little bitty truck. And we just started wasting those guys. They weren't there to fight, but those are the guys that shot us, obviously. Laid waste to those guys. Southbound guys, we see muzzle flashes coming. So we're shooting at muzzle flashes on the southbound side of the ravine. Blunt's got a saw. For the y'all that don't know what that is, this is a fully automatic M16, essentially belt fed. It lays waste, don't get me wrong. So we stopped hearing gunshots, so we stopped shooting. And now it's just us there by ourselves. Blunt's got shrapnel in between both of his legs. He can barely walk. He's pretty messed up. Phillips, the driver, I thought he was dead or about to die. Again, his face looked just like burnt raw hamburger meat. It's 100% black, like the blast, and he's got shrapnel all in his face. His arm is solid red. He's bleeding out of his shoulder, bicep area. I put a tourniquet on the shoulder part of his arm with my web belt. We learned that in boot camp. Before we had McMap belts, we had, you know what a web belt is.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, dude, we didn't have McMap wasn't even a thing then. We had web belts. So anyway, dude, we're posted up. We got our own security. I took Phillips' rifle from him. He was just, dude, he was a hazard. I mean, poor guy, dude. He was in bad shape, man.
Man.
So anyway, we had to get them out of here real quick. We had no comm at all. So I'm waiting for PJ, my buddy, to come back. I'm waiting for him they got a 240 and 5 dudes in that Humvee, man. Like, I need some reinforcements. And they're not coming back, right? So you just kind of get to that point where you got to make a decision. So I see a van coming from the way they should be coming. So I realize, we got a ways before they're going to be there. So I stopped them at gunpoint in the middle of the road. It's a man driving. He's got his wife next to him. And I'm yelling at him, I need help. Again, I'm in boots and utes. I have my blouse off. I had all that off to provide first aid for this. You know what I mean? I'm in boots and utes. I don't have a Kevlar cover, nothing. I have my rifle. And I've got my bayonet, my K-bar. And so I'm asking him for help. And he looks down in the ditch and sees our Humvee. And he freaking takes off. So that was a shot to the nuts, right? So I told myself the next one I'm not going to be as nice. So the next one I actually jumped out in the middle of the road. Again, it's a very narrow road.
Yeah.
I was just on a knee on the side of it when I was interacting with him. I didn't want to skyline myself too much, right? I didn't know if everybody over there was dead. So another van comes up. It's two males. And again, I expose myself, stand up in the middle of the street. I stop them at gunpoint, tires lock up. This little Haji van, man. And I pulled both of those guys out. So no wasn't going to be an option. They resisted a little bit at first, but I remember I put my knife to their throat. It kind of helped. It helped make their decision for them. So again, they were coming from east to west, the direction that we just came from when we got hit. So I load Phillips up in the cargo portion of the van. I'm driving. It's a stick shift, and I've got Blunt riding shotgun with his saw, right? So we head back towards the plant that we just came from. That's where I'm gonna have to freaking turn around and go back to to where my guys are. So we had to drive back through the kill zone, turn around, and then drive back through it again.
Golly,
again,
if you couldn't make up a worse nightmare, that's incredible.
Intense, dude. It was intense, man. So thankfully, I'll rewind a little bit. When the convoy left me, for lack of better words, I hate to tell PJ that he left me, but I always say
he left.
Get sad, but yeah. So when they rolled out, they finally regrouped when they realized that we weren't there. But this was like a 15-minute time frame from the time they left to the time they came back. We were there for about 15 minutes by ourselves.
Which in that time probably felt like hours. Yeah,
it did. It felt like hours being there. I mean, again, I was the least messed up out of these guys. I mean, I had a minor shrapnel in my face, and I ate the windshield when we came to a stop. I didn't have my Kevlar on, so I had this huge golf ball size freaking knot on my head. I broke my hand, but again, dude, it was a miracle. God was with me that day, man. And so anyway, when they decided to turn around, they popped a Red Star cluster just again, we had no comm. It was such a stupid mission to do. We had no comm. I had no internal comm, no external comm. I had nothing. And I mean, I wasn't even in my truck. The guy that was normally in charge of those two Marines was sick that day, and my lieutenant called me up to be a team leader. So I didn't have any of my stuff with me. I mean, the stuff I did have got blown to shit. I I lost a lot of like my cameras and all that stuff that day. Anyway, so we get in the van, turn around, and start heading down the road uh, towards like Saddam's big palace there in Baghdad. That's where I was going to take him. So we start cruising, man, and I see PJ coming. I see the Humvee coming down the road, right? And then I start seeing guns come sticking out the windows, and I see the turret kind of fixate on us. I was like, holy shit, they think we're the bad guys. So I put my head out the window and I'm saying ceasefire, ceasefire. Like, gee, that's the last thing I needed right there, right? Is just to get lit up by a 240, man. And so, yeah, it was them. Again, it was super hard to maneuver around them, but we were facing opposite directions. And I'm like, dude, Phillips is about to die. Like, I don't have time to sit here and we're just going to go. We're going to go and figure it out as we go. Because you guys got to turn around. You're at least 10 more minutes away from us. Like, we don't have that kind of time. He's bleeding out big time. So we keep going. I'm in this little van, dude, this little weed eater driven van, small little motor, man, anyway, so I'm blowing through stop signs. At this point, we're getting from where it's just all like farm fields and vegetation to where it's slowly starting to get to the city of Baghdad. So again, we're starting to see traffic now. Before we're in a remote road, man, just a one-way road in the middle of nowhere. And again, we finally get up to where the city's about to be. And I remember I go through this intersection, I punched it, and it was just a milky gas pedal. I blew something in it. So I'm just coasting at this point. I have no power anymore. I'm just coasting. So yeah, we coast off to the side of the road there, and then we're sitting ducks. Obviously, we stand out. The army convoy pulls up. They were responding to that Red Star cluster. This army lieutenant saw it, and they drove to it. That's
wow.
From there. So I told that lieutenant, he heard all the gun. Yeah. So again, man, I'm in a skivvy shirt, bloody. I've got Phillips blood all over me. Like I said, I'm hardly bleeding, but like my pants are so bloody from him. And I've got my M16 with my 203. I've got my flak jacket with my freaking K-bar. And so I opened he says to take the front vehicle. It was a high back, a single cab Humvee with, like an ambulance type deal. So we load Phillips and Blunt into the back of that. And I was riding shotgun. And I remember this little army private's just looking at me like I was crazy, man. Like, he was just like, they're not going to let us on base. I'm like, bro, now's not the time for that. Like,
just
they're going to let
shut up
us on
and drive.
base, homie.
Let me do the thinking on this part.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So we go to we get to the base, man, and I tell the guy at the ECP, obviously they're like, hey, you got to have a Kevlar on. I'm like, bro, I don't have it. It's in my truck. Like, we got to go. I got a guy about to freaking die back here. Like, we were just in a gunfight, blah, blah, blah. So the gate sentry, let us go. And I tell this guy, just go. He knew where the MASH was, where the hospital was there on and where the palace was. So we haul ass to the hospital. They weren't expecting us. Normally when they get a med flight, they know what kind of patients are coming, right? They had no idea we were coming. So I busted through the back door with Phillips on my shoulders. There's a huge sign that says no weapons, which we were all armed. We bust through that back door, and then they're playing cards. Again, we scared the crap out of them while the doctors and the nurses are right there. So, they stripped Blunt and Phillips down butt naked, man, and started working on both of them. And then they stabilized Phillips, and then we flew from a Black Hawk from there in Baghdad to Camp Dogwood, which is kind of where our headquarters was. And that's also where they were sending all the wounded people that were, that got wounded. That's kind of where the collection point was for that. So from there, they flew us in all three of us in a Black Hawk. We got to sit out the side with our feet out the side, which is pretty cool. They had Phillips loaded up in a litter. And so they flew us to Camp Dogwood. We were there for like 4 days. And then our first sergeant and CO came to see us, right? We told him I wanted to stay and fight, man. Like, again, I was fine. I knew I had a concussion or whatever, but I was like, I'm good, man. I want to stay here.
Yeah.
And so Blunt was the same way. He was like, I just need to get stitched up and I want to stay. Obviously, Phillips, it wasn't in the cards for him. So they tell us they're going to fly us to Kuwait to go get some testing done. And once we get cleared in Kuwait, they'll fly us back to Iraq. And we can we'll marry up with our company. So like, that's what my first sergeant and CO told me, right? At that time, I had First Sergeant Fitzgerald. He was just like, you did not want to piss him off. He's just one of those kind of guys, man.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, First Sergeant, we're coming back. All the Marines came and saw us and all that stuff. And so I remember when they told us we were going to Kuwait, we get on this airplane and the lady tells me, have fun in Germany. I was like, what'd you just say? She's like, go have fun in Germany. They did. So at that time, the commanding general that was in charge of the war, the Army general, his guidance was anybody that got wounded, no matter how they got wounded, they got sent home. It was just a propaganda thing, man. You know, it was to appease our parents is what it was. It had nothing to do with if you could fight or any of that, which I get, man. I kind of understand that. They don't want to make it seem like they're making us stay there and all that stuff. So anyway, the lady's like, have fun in Germany. I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, man, you don't understand. I got to call my first sergeant. I can't go to Germany. Like, I'm supposed to be going to Kuwait and coming back to Iraq. Like, freaking out, dude. She's like, sir, it's okay. They tell everybody that. Like, I promise you, your first sergeant and CO, they already know. They just don't want people freaking out and getting mad and going on a freaking tangent. So, dude, I'm in a skivvy shirt covered in blood. I'm in trousers covered in blood. I didn't have boot bands on. I didn't even have a freaking belt on because I used it as a tourniquet. All right. Hadn't showered in probably 3 weeks. Hadn't bathed in like 3 weeks with running water. I mean, my face wasn't as hairy as it is today, but I mean, you can imagine, dude. You weren't really shaving when we were doing all that stuff.
You weren't up to Marine Corps standards per se.
Nope. So, dude, they drop us off, and Blunt, you know, they cut his trousers off. So he was in a pair of blue medical pants, like hospital pants, with his boots, and then he just had his skivvy shirt. Obviously, he didn't wear his blouse with it. I had nothing. I didn't have an ID card. I had nothing. Nothing. I had nothing on me. They took the weapon from me. They took everything from us when they flew us before we left to go to Germany. So I was basically in boots and utes with no boot bands and no belt. Just nasty stunk, bro. They drop us off. They take us to, we didn't go to Landstuhl. We went to Ramstein Air Force Base. So Ramstein's a big Air Force base there in Germany, man.
Yeah.
And they just dropped us off like in Mainside there. Yeah, dude, these Army guys already heard our story, so they said that they were going to buy us our lunch for the day. So we went to like Taco Bell. We went to like the food court. Dude, there's people there with their families just sitting around, dude.
You went to the food court
Everybody
dressed
was staring at us.
as you just described.
Yeah. I mean, they dropped us off there because we were going to stay at this gym that was right next to this, you know, like the main side area. That's their process. As soon as you got there, they would go set a bed up for you in there, a rack and all that stuff. But you had to give them like an hour. They were like, as soon as you get here, we got everybody's names. We're going to get all your stuff set up. Come back over in an hour. And so obviously, you know, they weren't very hospitable on the plane. So we're freaking hungry, man. We've been flying for like 10 hours, 12 hours. And so again, we told these Army dudes our story and they were like, all right, we're going to buy your first meal. So yeah, they bought us Taco Bell. And I remember we were sitting there in the food court, dude, and just everybody was staring at us. And I remember thinking, I'd pray somebody comes and says something to me that I'm out of uniform. Like, I wish a dude would, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I got sent home early the first time.
Okay. Was your second experience over there anywhere like the first one, or you know, was it a little bit more enjoyable, if you will?
I mean, I went over there as a team leader the second time. You know, I was a corporal, so you know, I was in charge of people. It was fun, man. Again, I was there with my buddy PJ. We're going duck hunting tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow and Saturday, we're going to go duck hunting. So he was a team leader. We were in the same squad both tours, man. Like, I had day-to-day interaction with him. He lives up here in Dallas. I live in Austin, so it's like a 3-hour commute, but I come up here anytime I can, man. It obviously does something for both of us when we're together, you know.
You know what? That brotherhood
So
is
the
something
second
that
tour,
can never be replicated or replaced.
you're right, man. Yeah, it's good. It's always good seeing him, man. The second tour was way different, man. I mean, we were in Ramadi. At that time, that was the most dangerous place on earth. Uh, Ramadi it was a bloodbath there, man. So the building that we stayed in, we had, you know, our two platoons in there. We had first platoon and second platoon. So we were in charge of the entry control point as MPs. There at Camp Blue Diamond is where we were in 04. So our responsibility was the QRF for the base, the entry control point, and then we did that for 2 weeks at a time. You did the entry control point, and then when you were off, we did freaking 12-hour shifts. So when we were off, you were the QRF for the base. I mean, those dudes were always lobbing mortars and crap into our base all the time. We would respond to that kind of stuff, or if there's any suspicious activity going on, we'd go do that. And then the other platoon, the first platoon would be doing that. The other platoon, we did all the convoy security. And we did freaking walking patrols throughout Ramadi. So that was intense, man. I'm not gonna lie. It was very intense. I mean, just driving around Michigan, you can look it up, man. That was the most dangerous road in the world at that time in 04. You had to get special permission to drive down that road.
And you were doing walking
usually
patrols down this road?
Yeah. We would do like mounted patrols, and when we got to that kind of condensed area, we'd get out and walk the fenders. So essentially, you know, just the driver and the turret gunner stay in, everybody gets out, everybody else gets out to create a barrier. It's just people freaking everywhere, right? And I mean, I guarantee you, Chris Kyle and those guys, I guarantee you that he looked over our backs, you know, because that's where he was at. And Jocko, those dudes are right there in Ramadi the same time we were. So I know they watched our backs for sure. But I mean, when we rolled with General Mattis, so he took enough casualties to where we had to augment his guys because he didn't fly anywhere. He rode in a command position of an LEV everywhere he went.
Wow.
Like when he had meetings with the freaking governors. Yeah. When he had meetings with all those guys, he rode in a freaking LEV command position exposed with his 3 stars blinking. I mean, he had the tan ones, you know, the tactical chevrons. But yeah, those dudes were constantly getting in firefights and getting killed, man. So we used to see that. I mean, we didn't take any casualties like that the second time, thankfully. I mean, we had our shares of IEDs and firefights, skirmishes, but there was people dying all around us, man. So that was the first time, honestly, I really experienced suicide, right? I remember at the very end in September is when we came home. So like, you know how it is. You've been forward deployed. When it's time, you turn all your gear in. Like all we had, team leaders just had a radio for our platoon sergeant to get a hold of us to go get chow, man. Like we were non-operational.
Yeah.
We didn't have any crew serve. We didn't have any trucks. You had your pistol and your rifle, man. That was it. You didn't even have MVGs. Like they had already embarked all that stuff. So we were just cruise control, bro, eating chow and working out and going to the MWR tent, watching TV and stuff. And I remember one night we were about to watch the Cowboys play the Vikings. It was a preseason game. Like I remember sitting there like it was yesterday. And the Steelers just played somebody, and we were about to watch the Dallas come on, and we heard a 3-round burst. Bop, bop, bop. I'm like, what the hell? It was just really close. You know, you're used to hearing gunfire, but when it's super, super close, you know what I mean? It just was way inside that comfort zone. So we're like, what the hell? And then about a minute later, we get a call over the radio to get everybody back to the house. We had to do accountability formation. We're like, it didn't really dawn on us yet. So there was like 2 porta shitters at the end of like our road kind of. So we were Camp Blue Diamond was. It's where Uday and Yusei, Saddam's sons, had a little compound there.
Yeah.
Right. So they had the Jaydan Palace where they actually shot a Jaydan rocket to blow those assholes up. That's where the division headquarters was. Right. So it's a small little town inside of there, small scale, real high fence. You're right on the Euphrates River is right there.
Yeah.
It's our backyard, actually. Right. Hurricane Point right across the road. So we lived in like a house. I mean, bunk beds, whatever. So at the end of the road, walking a child, that's where the porta shooters were. We had some right by our house, but there was also some at the end of the road. And we had to walk past that to go back to the house, and you could see blood just kind of pouring out of the bottom of it. That's when we knew somebody just killed themselves. So they were doing an accountability formation to see who the hell it was. So us being MPs, it's a crime scene, right? Us being MPs, man, they were like, we got to set up a perimeter, so me being a corporal, my buddy Fallensby, he was a corporal at the time. I remember our lieutenant asked me and him to process the body. I was like, all right, cool, man. Like, we just got to do this. We had the chief medical officer was right there with us. We'd known him forever too. Chief was cool. So we asked Chief, it's your scene, Chief. Like, how do we do this? None of us had ever processed a freaking suicide. And so, yeah, I mean, we pried that door open, and homeboy's just slouched there with his freaking brain hanging out of the top. We put a 3-round burst under his chin. He'd been there for 2 weeks, man. That haunted me for a long time, seeing that. And I looked at his driver's license. He was from Texas. I don't want to give away too much. I promised this guy's dad. I told his dad the truth. I wanted to know what the Marine Corps told them. I wanted to know how they said he died. And, they told him it was from non-combat injuries. They recommended them to do a closed casket funeral, but, they went against that. So the dad kind of put 2 and 2 together, how mangled his head was. It took me about 10 years to get a hold of him. And then I told his dad a few of the details that was on his son, and he believed me. He knew I wasn't messing around. He knew that I was there with his son right after his son died. So that was right before we went home, man. Like that lingered, right? That messed with me for a long time.
Man. So after those 2 deployments, you finish out your Marine Corps career, obviously going through some hard times, dealing with some significant mental health issues. You have this nonprofit organization that you run now. How did you come from being this hard charging Marine, dealing with your own struggles, to running this nonprofit that you do? Let's hear about that.
For sure. So yeah, after I got out of the Marine Corps, like I said, in 2013, worked in the oil field for a little bit, and then ended up moving to Michigan, man, to be with my kids, to try to get custody of them, and eventually move them back down to Texas. So again, when I was in Michigan, dude, I was away from everything. I had no outlet, nothing. I was just working full time, and I had my kids. And then I finally moved back to Texas. And again, the guy PJ I keep telling you about. So PJ is the co-founder of Therapeutic Recreation Group. Again, we did 2 tours in Iraq together, and then we kind of stayed in touch once social media came out. He got out in like 2005, right? So I did the rest of my time without him, but social media kind of kept us in touch. I know all of his kids. All of his kids know me. Like, I've known his wife since she was 17. I've known them for 20 years. So we've always stayed in touch, right? And so PJ, he's such a good person, man. You would love him. He's a really good man. I'll just say that. He's a good man. He's a good person. Very giving person, very unselfish person. He'd give you the shirt off his back, even if he didn't know you. So he was kind of helping, he runs a successful business. They do like pool remodels and pool installs. They do elaborate backyard stuff. Complete exterior solutions is what they're called. They do landscape. They do it all. Very successful. They do high-end stuff. It's amazing. So he was giving back some money and his time helping some local organizations here in Dallas. He would go to these events and cook. He would get all the T-shirts made and just kind of donate it, for him or whatever. His business would donate it to the participants. He would make all the swag and stuff. And so he was donating a lot of his time and donating a lot of his money to these organizations. And I didn't even really know anything about that. So he invited me out on one of these trips with this organization. And it was cool because we got to reconnect. That was the main thing. We hadn't seen each other in 10 years, 15 years or whatever. And so we finally got to see each other. And so we were doing that, man. And I have a lot of connections down in South Texas that I knew they would want to get in on this, that they would see kind of what we were doing, and it would be, right up their alley, just good American people that want to, help people. So we put together like a hunt down there in South Texas, and, we did that for that organization. And, we were just honored to be doing it, honored to be giving back, honored to be helping people. And so, yeah, we were doing that, man. And he's got some contacts out in Arkansas. Well, they're up in Kilgore, Texas, but they have a big ranch in Arkansas. They do a lot of duck hunting out there. And he was like, dude, let me ask these guys if we can do an event out there. So we had 2 events that we were doing. We were doing a duck hunt and a deer hunt. And we were taking guys out. We were feeding them. We were doing everything. We were the one-stop shop. We didn't need anybody to, I'd say, help us. But again, we would get all the beer, all the food. We would cook everything, like making it all happen. And then one time, actually on the drive back from Arkansas, me and PJ were just, I'm saying we wanted this organization to be better, man. Just like true Marine Corps fashion, man. You just keep building it, right? You don't ever just let it sit idle, right? So PJ and I are both the same way, man. Like, we're not just going to let this sit stale. Like, we had all these ideas, and the leadership of that organization was, I'm not saying they were resistant of it, but PJ and I were like, dude, why don't we just start our own? And, I'd kind of toyed around with that before. After, again, I lost my brother. It was kind of something I wanted to do.
To up to this point, this wasn't TRG. This was, you guys were doing this on for another organization, or just kind of putting things together yourself?
No, for another organization. They're a legit like charity. So 501c3 is the tax title. So that's just what they refer to you as. So yeah, they were a legit 501c3, just like ours is. They already had infrastructure. I mean, so we were just like, we can do this. We can figure everything else out. So I looked up how to start a 501c3 and did it.
Wow.
I just looked it up, man. I mean, I talked to a couple of law firms that do it. It's like 10 grand just to start one.
Golly.
And I'm like, I'm looking for free, man. Yeah, it's 10 grand for them to, if you look it up now and see what it is, if to do all the like legit, it's like 10 grand. So yeah, I had to do all these letters and letter of formation, but I was very thankful. I have a very dear friend of mine. Her name is Susan Ramirez. She's the CEO of, they're called Austin Angels, or National Angels. They're a foster care service nonprofit. They do such amazing things for foster kids, right? They have an amazing program where it really is. So Austin's where it started. Austin Angels was the first one, and I'm sad I can't remember how many states they're in, but I know they're in like 20 to 30 states in America, and her goal is to be in every single state. She's just like, she wants to reach everybody. So they're on like a national level, man. And she's such an amazing person, very powerful woman. But I mean, we were in second grade together. I've known her my whole life, right? So she was the first person I reached out to when I moved back to Texas, when I had this idea that I wanted to kind of start an organization. And, she gave me everything I needed, everything I needed to do it. Like, she gave me all the tools necessary to do it. Like, she She was. I mean, she introduced me to people that said, you can pay these people to do it, or here's just our stuff that we did and how to do it. And so after I talked to the lawyers and they said it was going to be 10 grand, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to figure it out on our own. And so, yeah, we applied and did all that during the height of COVID. In May of 2020, dude, I got our IRS letter in the mail saying that we're a legit charity, tax-free, organization, man. So from there, we were already doing 2 events. Now we do 7 events now, and 2 fundraisers. We're doing a golf tournament this year.
Okay, what are those events, kind of specifically? Just not too much detail, but kind of overview of what events you guys host and hold.
Okay, yeah. So in December, we just did our Peeler Ranch hunt, the Graves Peeler Ranch. I've known the Peeler family my whole life too. I went to high school with Laura and Chris Peeler and Paul Peeler. He's their dad. He's just a great American person. They have about 4,000 acres down there. And this year was the 6th or 7th year they let us. We took 7 guys out there to harvest an animal. So we buy them rifles, to do it again. So yeah, we bought them 308 rifles with scopes, rifle bag, a sling,
and they
a couple of shirts
all
and stuff like
these
that.
Items?
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
wow.
We do a transfer form for them for their rifles, to make it all legal. And then so in January, I didn't get to go because I think I had the new COVID, man. I was sick for like a week, but last weekend, PJ took a group of 6 to Arkansas to do the duck hunt that we do. Same thing, man. We buy them shotguns. We bought them Beretta shotguns. We buy them wading boots. We buy them a little blind bag. We buy them everything, man. It's all cost-free to the participant. We convoy there. We rent a big Sprinter van, like a luxury van. It's like a 5-hour drive. We drive through Louisiana, like where the duck commander is, they're in Monroe, Louisiana. We eat. Yeah, dude. The Ivy brothers, they're younger, successful guys, man. They own Southern Transport LLC. It's a huge transportation company. They're one of our biggest supporters. Jonathan and Thomas Ivy, they're solid twins. I can tell them apart now. The first 5 years, I couldn't tell them apart, but I can tell them apart now. So the Ivy brothers, and Jonathan owns JTX Fords, which is a wheel company, man. They do some pretty good stuff. Big wheels on big trucks, man. So those guys, they're in it, man. They love supporting these American heroes. So then we don't have an event in February. In March, we go to the M5 Ranch. It's an exotic ranch in Breckenridge, Texas. The mayor of Longview, Andy Mack, he's a doctor. He's an oral surgeon. He owns that. So he opens that ranch up to us. Same thing. We buy them rifles. They process the animals there for us. Mr. Mack Dr. Mack has been great. So great for us. Yeah, he's the same thing. Yeah, he's an American, man. He's a good person, man. Again, he's a mayor. He's a mayor of Longview, Texas. But yeah, they've been great to us. So that's March. April, we do a couples retreat down in Fredericksburg, Texas. It's kind of like hill country, the wine country. It's okay. Last year we took 7 couples out there. We put them up in a really nice place, really nice food, kind of an intimate environment. You know what I mean? It's not like we don't have a therapist come in and drill anybody and stuff like that. It's more of just to relax and have a good time,
Yeah.
And then in May we go back to Arkansas.
Sorry, real quick. You're not only touching the veterans' lives, you're touching the whole family's lives with these events.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we don't want to be like a one and done. Like you go to some of these other organizations and they're doing good stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bashing anybody out there. You guys that are doing that stuff, you're great. I've gone on events to where, they get you a rifle, but you never hear from them again, right? And again, that's fine. They're still doing good service for people. They're putting meat in people's, freezers. They're feeding families. Ours, we want to be more of a network. We want to be to where we go do stuff together. We do stuff in the community together. That's kind of how we are. We want it to be for people. It's not these people that are broke or whatever. We want people that are, that want to do stuff, that want to get involved. that want to
Yeah,
help people just like me and you, man. There's, because I guarantee you know somebody that could use this. You know what I mean? And that's
100%.
the only thing that we ask from our participants is nominate a person that can use this. That's the only thing we'll ask from you. We're not going to ask you for money. We're not going to ask you to post all the stuff on social media. All I want from you is to give me a freaking name of somebody that can use this. So yeah. So then in June, we do a fishing trip down in Port Mansfield, Texas, again at the Peelers. They own a house down there on the coast. So I have a couple of cop friends that are mine. Caleb Mueller, I don't know if you know him. He was actually one of my students. He went through in P school. He's a cop down in Corpus Christi where I grew up now. So we met at one of our events. I didn't even know he was one of my past students. And then I was like, I
Wow.
introduced myself to him. He's like, I know who you are. I was like, what? So small.
That's
America,
crazy.
man. So super crazy, man. So yeah, him and Joel, Joel's retired Air Force. They've both been on the PD there in Corpus for 7 years. So they get me all my Corpus Christi cops to come do these events. We do first responders and veterans. So PJ's up here. He gets all the cops in Flower Mound where he lives, the city. We have a phenomenal relationship with the mayor, Mayor France, great guy. So we have so much support from this city, man, because they see what we do and they see the officers that we help. And so, yeah, we've got pretty much PJ runs the North Texas stuff and I do all the South Texas stuff. So I handle from Austin all the way down to Corpus Christi, and he handles the whole DFW area up here. So yeah, this year, June 29th, we're doing a golf tournament down in Corpus Christi at River Hills Country Club. I finally I'm coming out with that. I was waiting for our duck hunt to get over with before I announced that. But so we're going to do our first annual duck golf tournament, and that's to raise money to fund our events. We just source donations, man. We don't have a steady pool of income, so we have to, which is fine. We have to hustle, man. We have to ask
Yeah.
people for money every event. And then in July, we go to Colorado, man, that's a great. We always take some amputees to go summit the tallest mountain in Colorado, man, Mount Elbert.
Wow.
Yeah, we've done that for 3 years, man. We've had some amputees go up there, guys missing legs, missing arms. So we take them. The first year we went, so PJ's sister lives there, and her boyfriend's name is Ben. So they do a Jeep tour for us up there in the mountains. We go on like a remote Jeep tour. We cook them lunch on the top of the summit. And then the next day we take them whitewater rafting. And then after that, we summit the tallest mountain in Colorado, man, Mount Elbert. It takes us about 6 to 8 hours to do.
That's amazing. That's some life-changing experiences that you get to put in these first responders and veterans' lives. That's truly just next level.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
So I guess wrapping up on the TGR, or TRG, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you, sign up for these events, steer people towards your group? How would they go about that?
Yeah, thank you for that, man. So we have a website. It's therapeuticrg.org. So there, yeah, we have a list of all of our programs. You can hit apply now, and it's very tied up. I mean, right now, it's very tough competition, man. I'm not going to lie. Just because we're so small, we're just doing a limited amount right now. Yeah, I want to get to the point to where we can just bring 20 people per, right? So it's hard to get on events right now, but I mean, people are doing it. So we're doing these events. It's just I don't want people to apply and get frustrated. On our website, it's got all my information on there. PJ and I, you can read our stories on there, and then I do a newsletter every month too that gets posted on our website. And our newsletter kind of has what we've been doing and what we're doing the next month. So I do one of those every month that we have an event. So there's usually a few months throughout the year where I don't do one. Like I said, the months that we don't do events, I don't do a newsletter. I'm going to work, but in 2024, I'm going to do one every month moving forward. So yeah, I put everything there in the newsletter. Like I said, our website has our social media on there. If you want to donate, how to donate. If you want to apply to go on a trip, how to apply to go on a trip. And we do 2 fundraisers a year. We do a cornhole tournament here at Flower Mound on Veterans Day. We call it the Mound Throwdown. Where we raise money to fund our events. And then this year, like I said, we're going to do a golf tournament down at Corpus Christi for the same thing, man, just to fund our events, to fund our program. We have a Google bill and all the stuff that, that it costs to run one of these organizations. And I will say we're all volunteers. None of us get paid from the donations. We pride ourselves on that. So
That's huge.
I think at this point, 92.7% of all donations has gone to our program. The other 7% has gone to operate it. We have to pay for insurance and all that kind of stuff. To have a website. Like I said, Google, they charge you to have, your emails and all that stuff. So that's our overhead, man. Everything else, like I said, goes to our program to buy these rifles, shotguns, flights. When we go to Colorado, we fly them there. We cook food, so we have a massive grocery bill because we believe in eating together, as a family inside versus going to a restaurant and just, you can't even really talk, So
Yeah.
we cook all the meals. Everything's home cooked meals. We buy them swag. So yeah, thank you. You can find all of the information on our website. Like I said, it's www.therapeutic.org. And then from there, you can hit contact us and you can ask me questions and any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'll make sure there's going to be a link to your website when we get this thing out there. My last question for you, with all your life experiences, your ups and downs, and now sounds like you're in a really good spot. Any advice for our listeners, whether it be just life advice or, day-to-day advice that has really impacted you that you'd like to pass forward to somebody?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, my advice is no one's coming. Nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to tell you it's going to be all right. Like, the more you tell yourself that, the more that you're going to start doing stuff. The more you tell yourself that you can do things, you're going to freaking do them. Write things down, make them real. Tell somebody that you're going to do these things. Because when you keep them all up in here, they never happen. You're it, man. Either you want it or you don't. Like, there's no in between. There's no half-assing it. You got to go full throttle. There's going to be days where it sucks really, really bad. And everything that you start new, it's going to suck first before it ever gets better. I tell my kids that all the time. When you try something new, even when you go back to the gym, it's going to suck before it ever gets good. But that's what builds that character. That's what forges you to keep going is that transformation in between. When you go from it sucks to I can do this, like that's what you learn. That's the experience. Like you harped on it earlier about people who just wanted to just give things these days. They don't want to earn crap. Like that would be my advice, man. Nobody's coming. It's up to you. Tap yourself on the shoulder, look yourself in the mirror, smack yourself in the face, and just feel like, let's go.
This couldn't be truer words. Well, I tell you what, Robbie, it has been amazing hearing your story. I thank you so much. One, for me, not only being my first guest on the Josh Lacey podcast, but two, being vulnerable enough and showing a true side of what a warrior is in my mind. You've lived and breathed these warrior experiences and have that warrior mindset. And now through TRG, you just have so much empathy that you show towards people. And that's what this, what our kind of movement is really about, is the empathetic warrior mindset. Everybody has the capability of being a warrior and showing empathy, but sometimes it's hard to piece those together, and it takes a true person to really be able to put those together and just live the ultimate life. So I can't thank you enough, Robbie. Again, a link to your group or your organization is going to be on our description and in our social media. That way people can get a hold of you. Just thank you very much for being with me.
Likewise, man. I appreciate you, and keep doing what you're doing, man. It's a team effort out here to keep all these guys alive, man. So
yeah,
appreciate you.
Maybe someday I can come on one of those hunts with you, or be able to cook some food for some of those heroes and join up sometime.
Yes.
Sounds good. Hey, take care, Robbie.
man. I love that. All right, man. Be good.
Thanks for listening to the Josh Lacey Podcast, Empathetic Warriors. If you like what you heard, like and subscribe. Also, you can visit us on our Instagram at josh.lacey.podcast. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think.